One of the reasons I love the Nintendo DS is that it existed in such a weird space of the 2000s. The original Nintendo DS console came out in 2004, which was kind of like the peak time for weird marketing. It was right when the internet was becoming a huge part of everyday life, and companies were making their first stab at using online spaces to advertise their products and build communities, with varying levels of success. This was before trends and influencers were really dominating the online world, so it really did feel like this was the Wild West of companies trying out whatever weird marketing ideas they had and hoping that this new virtual audience would take to it. And it's because of this that we have some really cool Nintendo DS and Nintendo DS Lite consoles that have some really interesting marketing lore behind them. Now, in terms of standard commercial releases, there's honestly nothing too crazy to look at. Everything's pretty what you'd expect. Most of the special editions are just some kind of different coloured DS with a game logo on the front, except for these ones that you could get custom engraved in Nintendo World for a while. I guess they must have had like a laser engraver in Nintendo World, and there's a few like unique designs you could get engraved onto your DS, which is kind of cool. But where it starts to get really interesting is when we start to look at the consoles that were created as promotional material or contest prizes. So today I've compiled a few of my favourite weird and wonderful DS consoles that were ever created, and I'm going to take you through their creation a little bit, about why they came to be and why they're so iconic and memorable today. Electroplankton is a niche little DS game that has a certain level of fame among corners of the internet. And we're going to be referring to it as a video game in this video, but it's not a game in the traditional sense. I think the best way to describe Electroplankton is as a kind of musical sandbox. Some people suggest it's kind of a predecessor to rhythm games like Elite Beat Agents, although it's by no means a pioneer of the genre. But looking at the gameplay, it looks like it's more of a virtual music box themed on plankton for some reason. And the plankton do have names, which is important and interesting. I think I would probably be Nanocarp, and my enemy would be Volvoice. In the game, you could enter performance mode, where you could move different types of plankton around on the screen to create different notes, or audience mode, where you could simply watch and listen to the plankton making their own music, I guess. There was no storyline, no scoring system, and there wasn't even any way to save the music you made in performance mode. So yeah, this was a really strange game. And this is because the creator of the game, Toshio Iwai, is actually an interactive media artist, for whom video games are just part of his art form. He's an incredibly cool artist who's created some really interesting looking installations, which explore technology and interactive music, as well as creating and developing some video games. And I do mean creating and developing video games. Because one of the unique things about Toshio Iwai is that, for Electroplankton at least, he created the whole game by himself without a wider team. And if you're not much of a gamer, you might not understand quite how huge this is, but this article by IGN puts it really well. It compares building a video game by yourself to creating a movie by yourself, but also building the video camera. Or writing a book by yourself, but also building the computer you write it on. He even created the remarkably thick instruction booklet by himself, with all his own illustrations throughout to describe the gameplay. I actually adore this instruction manual so much. I think the fact that he hand drew everything by himself is so cool and such a unique touch, and it just makes me really miss instruction manuals in general. Like, so much. So Electroplankton was released in Japan in April of 2005. And to celebrate the launch, a Toshio Iwai exhibition was held in Tokyo's Harajuku Fashion Center, which is where our strange DS console comes in. There was seemingly a lot on show in the exhibit. There were inventions and projects from throughout Iwai's life, which could be interacted with, as well as some showcases of previous video games that he worked on. And significantly, there was a display featuring work from his previous video game, Sound Fantasy. Sound Fantasy was another rhythm game of his, which was cancelled just as it neared completion and never saw an official release. And because of that, this game was lost media for a while, so this work being on show was kind of a big deal. But the good news is this game has since been found and archived, so it's no longer lost media. But anyway, back to Electroplankton. The star of the show was, of course, the fact that you could play Electroplankton on a load of Nintendo DS's that were in the exhibition centre. There were various Nintendo DS consoles that you could try out the game on, or watch the game as was part of the gameplay. But one of these DS's might be the strangest console to ever exist. Trypophobia warning in 3, 2, 1. It's this Electroplankton DS. It's a metallic purple DS covered in circular cutouts which allows you to see the inner workings of the DS, supposedly made by Iwai himself. And as you might expect, people are very divided about this console. Some people think it is the worst DS console to ever exist and just looking at it makes them uncomfortable, while other people think it's a cool bit of art. I think I'm on the side of I think it's a cool bit of art. It is a bit weird, but I like that. And a common misconception that I see about the Electroplankton DS is that there are 10 or 11 versions of it, but that's not true. There is only one official Electroplankton console, and that is owned by UI himself. There were 10 more custom Electroplankton DSs that were given out at this event, I think through some kind of giveaway, so I think that's where the confusion comes from. But these were custom Electroplankton DSs, but they were not this specific console. They were instead this kind of pearly pink console with an Electroplankton themed laser engraving on the front. So they're still very unique and very rare. There's only 10 of them that were ever made, but they are not the Electroplankton DS. There's only one of them. This next one really is one of the best examples of the Y2K marketing I was talking about at the start, where there were just these kind of really random collaborations going on. So Sundance Film Festival is a huge film festival held every year in Utah. And when I say huge, I mean it's like one of the biggest film festivals in the USA, if not one of the biggest in the world. It's the kind of festival where you'll see things like film screenings, talks and interviews by industry leaders, and of course the awards ceremony. But if you were a celebrity at Sundance 2005, you could also visit the Nintendo Lounge. And although this seems like a super random collaboration, especially since in 2005 Nintendo really didn't have anything to do with film, apparently it was a really well-received event. Sundance 2005 was happening just a few months after the official release of the Nintendo DS console, so it was pretty exciting for celebrities to get to try out these new handheld consoles, and it seems that there was also opportunity to test out some upcoming releases too. Although it looks like the only upcoming Nintendo DS game you could test out was WarioWare Touched, which sounds awesome actually, that sounds so fun. Get me back to 2005, get me at Sundance Film Festival, get me in the Nintendo Lounge. But even better than a bunch of celebrities sitting around playing WarioWare Touched is the article that talks about the celebrities loving talking to each other via PictoChat. They highlight that the celebrities loved talking with PictoChat. The mental image of that is just amazing and like nothing we'll ever get again. Like, what would be the modern day equivalent of a bunch of celebrities like talking to each other on PictoChat? It just wouldn't happen. And that's what's wrong with the world. On a side note, Nintendo did actually make another appearance at Sundance Film Festival in 2012 to promote the release of the Nintendo 3DS in a similar way, and there are some incredibly iconic pictures that came from this event. Just such good pictures. Oh my god. But I digress. We need to discuss the special edition 2005 Sundance Film Festival DS consoles. As part of this 2005 event, Nintendo created 3 custom airbrushed Nintendo DS consoles, which were auctioned off among the celebrities for charity. These consoles were created for the event by an artist called JB Graphics, who funnily enough has a pretty turbulent relationship with the world of video games. By which I mean a few years after this, he sued Activision. Basically, he used to work on the show American Chopper as one of the painters for the bikes, and the suing arose when merchandise started being produced which included the bikes that JB Graphics had designed, which he claimed infringed on his copyright of the designs, which, yeah. And one of these uses included the American Chopper video game released by Activision, which included replications of the bikes that JB designed. But once again, let's swing back to the Sundance custom DSs. So there were blue, green and brown consoles available for auction, and it looks like they raised a total of $23,000 from this event, which were donated to the Children's Hospital and the Tsunami Relief Fund, in light of the recent 2004 tsunami. The blue console was won by John Moore, the green console went to Poppy Montgomery, and the brown console was won by Alan Cumming. And there were no more consoles like this that were ever created, which is not something I'm upset about even a little bit, actually. I don't have any more info on what happened to these consoles after the auction. Presumably these celebrities still own them, and hopefully they still pull them out every so often for a bit of PictoChat. And from one incredibly 2000s DS to a set of potentially even more 2000s DSs, it's time to talk about bedazzled consoles. Now, bedazzled consoles wasn't a particularly crazy concept, it was 2005 after all, so we have quite a few examples of bedazzled consoles that existed. There's the Crystal Icing set, which includes these really cool Mario and Zelda designs, which are pretty rare, but they do occasionally crop up on reselling sites for a lot of money. There's this one-of-a-kind bedazzled Bratz console, which is produced as a competition prize, which is just so cool. But the collaboration we're focusing on today is the NYC Peach set. This was a pretty standard bedazzled console set, which was sold in very limited numbers in the New York Nintendo store, But there's one console among this set which is a lot more unique than it might look, and that console is the pink paw print DS. Presumably this console was themed on Nintendogs, although that's not an official connection that's ever been made. It might just have been that they were doing kind of girly designs. But actually the bedazzling and the design of the console has nothing to do with why it's so unique. The uniqueness is down to the colour of the base console. The colour of this console is called Candy Pink, which is a colour unique to the Japanese market that was not available in the US. NYC Peach requested this colour specifically for this set, and you can actually see the alteration on the box of this console. The colour code lists Japan, while the box states that it's only for sale in US, Canada and Mexico. So this specific bedazzled paw print DS is the only way you have ever been able to buy a candy pink DS from a US retailer. And there was only 5 of them ever created. One of these still lives in the New York Nintendo store, but the rest of them are just out there in the world, purchased by 4 members of the public. And if you're confused, you could actually get a pink Nintendo DS in the USA, but it's a different pink. Pink wasn't an official release colour with the Nintendo DS, but there was a pink console bundled with some copies of Nintendogs, but this was not candy pink. These consoles were a slightly different shade of pink that's known as pearl pink. This one I thought was a really interesting one. I kind of neglected looking at the bedazzled consoles all the way through my research because I figured they'd just be kind of boring. There were loads of bedazzled consoles going on in the 2000s. But this one, I was really excited to find out had a little bit of interesting lore behind it. If you're looking for unique, one-of-a-kind Nintendo DS consoles, the best way to find them is to look through the ones given away as contest prizes. There are quite a few of these prize consoles themed around whichever game or company were giving them out, but this is one of the more unique ones that I found. And this console was the first prize for a competition being run to promote the upcoming DS game Lock's Quest. To begin with the chance of winning, participants had to complete a flash game, and we don't really know too much else about the process. It looks like this flash game has been archived on the Wayback Machine, but my computer thinks it's being hunted for sport whenever it tries to open it, so I can't get any further than the opening page. However, Lock's Quest is described to have a gameplay style that's very reminiscent of Flash games, so it could be that this Flash game was actually a kind of recreation of the actual gameplay. We do have the official contest rules archived on Wayback, but they don't give too much more info other than the fact that you would have to play the Flash game, then submit your info via a form to be entered into a sweepstakes. These rules also confirm that this custom DS was the grand prize, so we can assume that this means this is the only one ever created. But none of that is what's really interesting. What's interesting is the appearance of the console itself. Now, these pictures I'm showing are literally the only pictures we have of this console, but this DS seems to be particularly unique in the fact that it has glowing buttons and a glowing flame-shaped emblem on it. In all my research, I didn't come across a single other DS that had these kind of glowing elements, much less a 3D sculpted glowing element on the lid. I don't know if it's called the lid. Maybe it's the top? I don't know. And I would love to know more about this console, but information on it is pretty scarce. The Lock's Quest website seems to be defunct now, and the only real documentation we have of this contest are a couple of fan articles accessed via the Wayback Machine and the aforementioned rules page. Interestingly though, we do know that this DS was the grand prize for the US competition only, but there was another Lock's Quest competition that ran in Australia, which was completely different and had a completely different prize DS. It seems that instead of playing a flash game, for the Australian competition, you had to submit a design for a new tower in the game, where you could win yet another custom Lock's Quest DS. It looks like a customised shell more than the fully customised DS console that the US competition had, and also this one tiny picture that's like an image from a magazine is the only picture we have of this console. I couldn't find a single other picture of it anywhere. And to finish off, let's do a bit of a speed round with a few of the weird and wonderful consoles I found that are still really interesting but don't have a whole lot of lore to discuss. First are these Animal Crossing seasonal Nintendo DS consoles, which were given out as prizes for a competition run by the Swedish distributor for Nintendo products, Bergsala. These are genuinely some of my favourite consoles. The art is so cute, and especially the fact that the insides are customised as well. That's not something that I saw a lot. Now, these consoles, there actually is quite a bit of lore to go into. The reason I'm not going into it now is because L Supersonic U has a much more in-depth video all about these consoles. So if you want more info on them, you can just go and watch that video. I'm just putting them in here to highlight that they're cool and they exist, and I like them. basically. Similarly, Sweden also gave us this custom Mario console, which was the first place prize in the Swedish Nintendo Championships. And again, it's painted inside and out. So Sweden really does not play around with Nintendo. And if I may, I'd love to give a shout out to the Nintendo DS with my favourite bit of lore. It's this Mario 64 console produced as a prize for Endzone magazine, where no one was able to enter the competition because they forgot to include the instructions of how to enter the competition in the magazine. They just announced that there was a competition to win this DS and forgot to tell anyone how to do it. We also have a plethora of signed consoles to explore, my favourite one definitely being this Stormbreaker one. This one is an incredible relic to me because I was obsessed with Stormbreaker when it came out. I think it was like the coolest film that had ever been made. There's a scene near the end where they're like galloping a horse through London, and like that scene when I was younger, I was just like, this is good, this is good. I feel like he actually had like a Nintendo DS spy console in that. Was that true? And now a shout out for two of my absolutely least favourite DS consoles that have ever been made. One of them is definitely this Cheetos DS, which just looks dirty and gross, and like this cannot be a carefully considered design choice. We also don't have any footage of this actual DS console, we only have this advert of it. So like, did it actually exist or not? Like, who could say? Hopefully not. And this bizarre console, which was a collaboration between Nintendo and Cheese Strings for some reason. This one really confuses me because like, how is this a collaboration that benefits anyone? Like, what is either company getting out of this collaboration? How is that cross-promotion like truly working? But that is everything for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you learned something about the Nintendo DS, learned a little bit of cool lore or something. I found this one really fun to look into, so I hope you found it really fun to watch. I have loads more videos like this planned about kind of like weird, nostalgic media and just things that I find cool, little video essays on things like that. So I'd love it if you stuck around and had a look at a few of my other videos and stay for any future videos. So thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!